What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Prophecy Misfits Podcast. This is episode 345. The Gallows. Got some interesting stuff to talk about. I apologize for being late tonight. I had an unexpected power outage for about an hour and a half, and it just turned on about 7 o'clock, and I was right in the middle of getting everything done, and so I just got my power back on, so I've been trying to rush to get everything ready and whatnot, because I couldn't do it without power, obviously. So I apologize for being late. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. Hopefully everything is good to go. So, but yeah, it's just these unexpected things, man. Power, and there's no reason for it to go out. It just went out. But anyways, we're back on. We're running. We're good. So that's all the good stuff there. So, but welcome in. This is what we do on Tuesdays and Saturdays. We get together and we watch for the crazy things happening around the world right now. And we know we're in these last days. We don't know how much time we have left, but that doesn't stop us from keeping tabs on everything happening and taking a view like we're called to do in Scripture at these stepping stones and these foreshadow events and everything that are leading us to prophecy to be fulfilled later on. Obviously, we know the rapture is going to happen beforehand. Praise the Lord for that. But it's one of those things where we're called to watch, and we're called to use them as not only encouragement for each other in the body of Christ, but also as witnessing tools so we can get the gospel out to as many people as we can. So welcome in. Glad to have you guys here. And so the Gallows, we're going to be going over a few things. We're going to be taking a look pretty much a lot at things going on when it comes to the ICE and DHS situation. We got a lot of stuff happening there. And the situation with Venezuela and what's going on there as well. But we also have a few other things that we'll talk about as well from the pharmaceutical side of the pharmaceutical side of things and stuff and all the good English vocabulary language stuff going on there. We also got some updates when it comes to the supposed the elimination of the Department of Education, which, like the U.S. aid program, isn't getting eliminated. It's just getting folded into another program. So, yeah, fun stuff. But yeah, this should be entertaining. But either way, glad to have you guys here, and hopefully everybody is doing well. Looks like everybody's just chatting it up everywhere. That's kind of cool to see. I got all three chats up right now, and I can see everybody's just talking to each other, talking amongst themselves. But it's good to see you guys, and hopefully everybody's doing all right this Saturday evening. So let's go ahead and get into some housekeeping before we start jazzing it up.
Housekeeping?
Don't think you're sleeping.
Housekeeping?
All right, for housekeeping, usual spiel. If you guys can, like, share, subscribe. Get this out to as many people as you can. It's not about views, not about butts and seats, but it is about getting the warning out to people and getting people to Jesus. So if you guys can do me a solid and like, share, subscribe, certainly appreciate it. Again, our whole goal here is not to be a little social club, locked-in social club, have the password to get in and stuff like that. Our goal is to try and reach as many people as we can. We're trying to be that bridge to reach out to the community, like the truther community and stuff like that, who they're all interested in what's going on. They want to find out the facts of everything, but they don't necessarily have the salvation that only comes from Jesus Christ. And so hopefully we can be that bridge. We can reach out to them. And I need your help with that by just simply liking and sharing and subscribing and whatnot, because that helps that stupid algorithm to reach those people. So if you guys can do me a solid, appreciate it. Also, make sure you guys follow me on Rumble and Telegram. Those are my backup channels. If I get booted off YouTube, we'll be backup live streaming over on Rumble. So make sure you guys go ahead and follow me over there. And then Telegram, post updates, announcements, and other little things that I can't necessarily put in video format. I throw them up over there. So if you don't like Rumble, you don't like Telegram, that's perfectly understandable. Just make sure you guys bookmark the WretchedWatchmen.com website. That's your one-stop shop to stay up to date on everything happening around this weird thing that we call Wretched Watchmen. You'll find the latest podcasts and live streams. The announcements are there. You can find the free book to download and all the other stuff. So you guys can go ahead and bookmark that page, so you're always aware of the things that are happening. What's the haps? And then if you guys like to support this channel, what I got going on, I got donation links down below. CashApp, Venmo, and GiveSendGo. This channel's not monetized. I don't make anything from ads, views, or anything like that. It is solely based upon your donations. I think ministry should be free. I think everything involving ministry and getting the gospel out there and everything like that should be free. Unfortunately, it's been turned into a business, which I think is sad, and I think we need another turning of the tables. But unfortunately, I don't see that happening. But our position here is everything should be free. And we're able to do that because of you fine folks and your generous hearts and donations. So I appreciate your supports and your blessings and everything. You guys are incredible. You guys make this run, and I thank the Lord for you guys. So thank you for that. Just because I'm hammering this home because I want to make sure I get it out there. I think it's doing some good. Every Friday, I release a video called the Wretched Recap. Every Friday, it's about 20 minutes. I go over 4, 5, 6 different news topics pretty quickly. Me and quick, I know, right? I like depth, but still, I think people appreciate this as well. And it's new topics, so don't get confused and think the Wretched Recap is I'm just recapping stuff that we've already talked about. This is new things. I may reference something that we did talk about the past week, but it is new stuff. So make sure you guys tune in for that. It's just a video. It's not a live stream or anything. I just throw it up. So that's noon central on Fridays. So make sure you guys tune in on that one. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. And then I just want to address this real quick because my inbox has been flooded with it, and I'm pretty much done responding to everybody on it, so I'll just address it here and now. There is I'm calling it a hit campaign because that's basically what it is. A hit campaign going out against Chuck Missler. And it's being led by 2 channels that I know of. I'm getting flooded with one by the Magical Mystery Church, and then there's another one called We Read the Documents or whatever it is. I don't necessarily know who those people are. But basically what they're doing is they're taking 2 blogs from 2 people where half the links are dead or don't exist. Clearly that information has not been vetted or properly researched, and they're putting on a hit campaign against Chuck Missler. Both channels I don't associate with, I don't recommend. From this whole perspective, how I'm seeing they're doing their research, they're clearly not doing research. They're just reading blog posts from people who clearly have an agenda. Do I agree with everything Chuck Missler has done? No. Do I think he was involved, connected to some bad people like Tim LaHaye and whatnot? I do. I don't understand why he was connected to people like that. But he's not alive now and I can't ask him. Either way, from the vetting that I've done on Chuck Missler, while I disagree with some of his stuff, he's not somebody that I'm backing away from. So if you're sending me that saying you need to disavow Chuck Missler, stop sending him to my email. Simple as that. So yeah, I'm not going there, and I'm not a fan of the quote unquote research that those channels have done with Chuck Missler by just reading blogs from 2 people, and half the sources and links don't exist or are dead. So that's not a good way to properly do research, in my opinion. So, and I think so much so that Queen House has even reached out and said, let's talk to these people who have been putting this stuff out. So just want to address that here and now. And last thing before we start getting into stuff, if you guys missed it, I had the great pleasure of filling in for Pastor Jeff Solwold over at Calvary Chapel Madison last night, and covered some stuff when it comes to the mysticism and spirituality of technology and AI and stuff like that. So, yeah, I recommend going and checking it out. You can find him at the Calvary Chapel Madison channel, and go check that out. Good stuff. And love Jeff, appreciate Jeff, and I thank Pastor Jeff for that invitation, as well as Brian for putting on all the technical stuff. So it was a great time. All right, that's all we got when it comes to announcements. A lot of announcements, I know. Let's get rolling because we're already late as it is, and it is Saturday, so we're going to go ahead and get into the Wretched Weather Report.
Everybody got their fancy hats? Let's go!
All right, so let's go ahead and get into the Wretched Weather Report. What we do is we keep track of the trends of what's going on when it comes to natural events, things like earthquakes and volcanoes and storms and tornadoes and hurricanes and flooding and all that type of jazz. We just keep track of what's going on. I'm not a weatherman, I'm not a geologist or anything like that, but I still think it's a good idea to keep track of these things because these are going to be a part of the birth pains. They're going to increase in size and frequency as we get closer and into the day of the Lord. So it's good to keep tabs on what's going on. And so this past week, earthquakes, pretty minimal as far as large scale earthquakes, 5.5 magnitude and up. But this past week, the big one was a 5.8 in Ambon, Indonesia. And then there's a 5.5 in Narsingdi, Bangladesh. I know I butchered that name. Then there's a 5.5 in Miyako, Japan, 5.6 south of the Fiji Islands, out in the middle of the ocean. And then a 5.7 in Severokursk, Russia. As we know, Russia, that Severokursk region has been getting hit pretty hard, as well as the Petropavlovsk region as well. So they're continuing to get a lot of earthquakes over in that area. As far as volcanoes, we are really low. We've had a low amount the past few months, but man, we are still keeping with a really low number as of now. The usual global average trend sits anywhere from 44 to 48, but we are sitting at a pretty 40 right now, which is down one from last week. I got 6 in North America, which is down 1, 5 in South America, 6 in North America, there we go, 5 in South America, 1 in Europe, 2 in Antarctica, 3 in Africa, 16 in Asia, and 7 in Oceania. So we got that stuff happening over there with the volcanoes. I want to point this out as well for all of our friends down under. In there, we have the severe tropical cyclone Fina, who just hit Darwin, and it might hit another section of Australia in a few days. So severe tropical cyclone Fina has passed Darwin as a Category 3, with the weather system's gale force winds leaving a path of destruction as it continues west into the ocean. Fina was the Northern Territory's strongest cyclone to pass Darwin since the deadly Cyclone Tracy in 1974. The system was also more powerful than Cyclone Marcus, which passed Darwin as a Category 2 in 2018. Now tracking west-southwest, severe TC Fina is picking up strength over the Timor Sea and could hit the top of Western Australia in the coming days. So Darwin got hit with the severe tropical storm, or tropical cyclone. Yeah, tropical cyclone. And so I know that there's some damage in there. I don't think there's any deaths. Praise the Lord for that. But you never know when they have to clean up, they might find something. But hopefully that death counter stays at 0 for this. But there is some destruction, so please keep them in your prayers as they continue to rebuild from the storm, as well as keep Western Australia in your prayers, because they may get some of this as well as it passes through. So I just saw that pop up, and I think that's something to pray. I think we got I think it's Jacques, right? Jacques over there on Rumble. You guys are in Australia. Did you hear about this? Do you have any family in that region? Let us know. Keep you in prayer for that. So, and that's what we got with the Wretched Weather Reports for today. There's, of course, I have to continue to mention this because it's insane what's happening, but there's still massive amount of flooding happening around the world right now. It's just non-stop floods. Just, it's incredible the destruction that's happening with the water. So just general prayer for all the flooding around the world, for people and their homes and their property and whatnot. So please keep them in prayer on that. So, all right, that's what we got. Let's see, guys. Was hoping Jacques, I saw you there. Hopefully you'd respond. Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. All right, you guys ready to get into the crazy stuff happening? We got a lot of stuff when it comes to legal stuff, with what's happening with ICE and DHS and the Venezuela situation and everything like that. So we're going to do our best to try and cover all of this stuff. So first up, we got judge hits pause on IRS sharing taxpayer information with ICE. U.S. District Judge Colleen Collar-Cotelli found the Trump administration policy was unlawful. Jacques is reporting in floods everywhere. Yes, in Darwin, Australia, the destruction was terrible. Okay. All right, well, we'll keep you in prayer, Jacques, down there, and all of your Australian kin in that region. So thank you for letting us know. So we talked about this plan that they were doing. They were trying to put forward where the ICE was taking information from the IRS database, and they were utilizing that in order to find people's homes so they could go and raid and arrest these people. And that we talked about that a couple weeks ago, I believe. And then now we're getting this where the judge is basically putting a halt on that. It says a Washington, D.C. federal judge on Friday temporarily blocked the IRS from sharing taxpayer information with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, finding the practice unlawful. The court concludes that the plaintiffs have shown a substantial likelihood that the IRS's adoption of the address sharing policy and the IRS's subsequent sharing of taxpayer information with ICE were unlawful under the Administrative Procedure Act, U.S. Judge Cotelli wrote in a 94-page ruling. Furthermore, plaintiffs have shown that the IRS's disclosure of confidential taxpayer address information to ICE was contrary to law because it violated several provisions of the Internal Revenue Code. So imagine them doing something unlawful. Anybody surprised by that? It says the order indicated that in early August, the IRS disclosed information for nearly 47,000 taxpayers. Nice. So the IRS went ahead and gave the profiles of 47,000 people to ICE for their investigation. Just think about this. Right now, all of the information is still scattered among different departments and programs and systems. Everything is still scattered, so they're still having to pick from each individual thing. They have the information, but they still have to go through everything in order to get it. Just wait until all of that is centralized in a Palantir data system, where all of this information is stored in one spot. So it's not all these agencies going to different agencies to gather information. No, it's all the agencies being able to just pull from the exact same centralized hub and gather all information of every aspect of your life just by going to a single well in order to do it. Doesn't that sound great? Because they're already doing how many illegal and unconstitutional and privacy invading things right now based in a way that's difficult for them to operate. But just wait until all of that is centralized for them to use. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be great. Yay. Yay. Thank you. Thank you, globalists. Thank you, globalist puppet Trump. Thank you for all you're doing. Thank you. 6 people have held the lead role at the agency so far this year, with Bessent stepping up as the latest acting commissioner after Trump removed Billy Long in August. 6 people. This is a trend that you guys are going to notice with all the stuff that we're going to be talking about. 6 people have held the lead role at the IRS. And they've all been, and that's just this year. We haven't even finished out this year yet. And they've all been removed and replaced. Now Bessent is taking over, which Scott Bessent, we know, is George Soros's boy. It says other agencies in the administration have agreed to share information to aid immigration enforcement. The Department of Health and Human Services said in a memo on Friday that it intends to share data with ICE to aid the administration's effort to root out undocumented immigrants. So now Health and Human Services is getting ready to start giving all of their information to ICE so they can start utilizing that as well. Yeah, for all the people who still think like that HIPAA stuff means anything, it doesn't. There's no privacy with your medical information. They're going to use everything that they can in order to take away the, well, I don't even want to say that because that's not true anymore either. They're going to use any information that they can to put the boot down on your throat. Let's just put it that way, because that's what's going on right now. Again, and I just want to put this out there because I noticed that I'm still getting some new people and stuff coming in. Nobody here is against removing illegal immigrants from this country. Nobody here is against that. Even though for some reason, anytime that, well, we know the reason why is because everybody's been programmed with this left-right political paradigm that if you're not for something, then obviously you're on the other side against it. It's like, that's not true at all. Some of us are still we're just sitting up in the bleachers next to Jesus watching the whole theatrical show between the left-right stuff happening. We're not even in the game because we can see through it. We know it's rigged. But when it comes to this, it's like nobody's against the immigration stuff, but we recognize that this whole immigration thing was purposely done, orchestrated in order for this administration to come in and to establish what we're seeing right now, which is destroying the constitutional rights of people, eliminating all bits of privacy, which again, we'll notice a lot of that, and in order to bring this country down. This country is like the last domino that needs to fall before everything starts falling in line with the coming events that we know that'll happen prophetically. So we need to recognize that and understand that. And so this is a case of we're not picking sides. We're not acting out against one side or the other. We're just keeping tabs of what's happening from the spot of the bleachers. And I think that's the best place to be. Why? Because that's where Jesus is at. And I'm happy to be there. Sticking when it comes to what is happening with taking away all aspects of your privacy. This came out. It says Border Patrol is monitoring U.S. drivers and detaining those with suspicious travel patterns. So this isn't Flock, because we've talked about Flock. So I want to make sure that we don't get those confused, because a lot of people say, well, they've been doing that with Flock. This is different. Again, we talked about how not everything is centralized yet. There's still different programs and different policies and different departments and all that type of stuff. So this isn't Flock. This is something that the U.S. Border Patrol has been doing for quite a few years now, actually. And so this is a different thing. So it's just more dystopian technology being used against us. Says the U.S. Border Patrol is monitoring millions of American drivers worldwide in a secretive program to identify and detain people whose travel patterns it deems suspicious. Anybody finding this just ridiculous? So they're monitoring you, tracking you, and if they think that your travel pattern is suspicious, whatever that may be, whatever they concoct in their own mind, that's enough for them to go and pull you over for some other violation they claim that they're doing, and they're going to search your car. They're going to possibly arrest you. They're going to question you. You know, they're going to get the big, meaty hot lamp and put it on your face to make you sweat as they're questioning you and stuff, all because they deemed your travel suspicious. I'm sorry, anybody who deems that this country is still free and still abides by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights has no idea what they're talking about. They are living in the past, and we need to make sure that we are not living in La La Land, because that's what it is, and we are living in reality. That country, that free country, is long gone. And we need to make sure that we're living in reality of what we're seeing right now. It says the predictive intelligence program has resulted in people being stopped, searched, and in some cases arrested. A network of cameras scans and records vehicles' license plates information, and an algorithm flags vehicles deemed suspicious based on where they came from. So it's an AI program that is determining if you're sus or not. Where they are going and which route they took. Federal agents, in turn, may then flag local law enforcement. Suddenly, drivers find themselves pulled over, often for reasons cited such as speeding, failure to signal, the wrong window tint, or even a dangling air freshener blocking the view. They are then aggressively questioned and searched with no inkling that the roads they drove put them on a law enforcement's radar. Once limited to policing the nation's boundaries, the Border Patrol has built a surveillance system stretching into the country's interior that can monitor ordinary Americans' daily actions and connections for anomalies instead of simply targeting wanted suspects. So everybody's being watched. Everybody's keeping an eye on you, keeping tabs on you. An AI algorithm is keeping a profile of how you're driving, where you're going, where you're coming from, the roads that you're taking. And if that deems it suspicious, it'll flag somebody and they can go and pull you over, making up a reason to do so, which they do all the time. You can't deny that. It happens all the time. And because they believe that you are somebody that's suspicious. Remember, because this is talking about Border Patrol, and we look at the main guy, the top dog regarding the Border Patrol. That's Greg Bovino. And he's talked about, I showed the interview about a month ago, I think. Showed the interview with him. He said, if we pull you over and you have a tight grip on the steering wheel, if your eyes are, if you're not making eye contact, if you look nervous, then we're going to deem that as suspicious behavior and we're going to pull you out of your car and search it and question you because we think that you're doing something illegal. He told you that. He told you that's what's happening. And this is the extension of that when it comes to tracking everybody's license plates and keeping tabs on you. This is like a technocratic version of 1930s Germany. There's no way around it. We already know that we're getting to the point where people are, these enforcement people are just walking up, asking people to provide identification and papers, which, depending on the state, that's entirely illegal. There's so many states, I think the majority of states, but it's constantly changing. Check your own state where you live. But the majority of states, unless you're suspected of a reason, you don't have to provide anything. So that's how it is. But all that's going out the window. And we have so many people that can't seem to see the reality. They are cheering this on. One of the big ones out there, somebody sent me a video. I can't watch it. I just can't because it's absurd. But they, Olive Tree Ministries just had Jack Hibbs on, and he's just up there, just get out there and vote and do the political thing. And if you don't, then you're being disobedient to God. And he's just pushing this stuff. And my opinion of Jack Hibbs has changed from I think he's deceived to I think he is an actively aware deceiver. I think he's on the payroll when it comes to this, and I will say that. That's my opinion on it, and that's how it goes because of what he's doing. The political campaign is ridiculous, and how anybody can ignore what is happening right now and support this is beyond me. It's beyond me. It says the Border Patrol has recently grown even more powerful through collaborations with other agencies, drawing information from license plate readers nationwide run by the Drug Enforcement Administration, private companies, people like Flock and stuff, and increasingly law enforcement programs funded through federal grants. Texas law enforcement agencies have asked Border Patrol to use facial recognition to identify drivers, documents show. So there's good old state of Texas doing all this. This active role beyond the borders is part of the quiet transformation of its parent agency, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, into something more akin to a domestic intelligence operation. Under the Trump administration's heightened immigration enforcement efforts, CBP is now poised to get more than $2.7 billion to build out border surveillance systems such as the license plate reader program by layering in artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies. So their idea of border protection, of border surveillance, has to do with tracking United States Americans deep into the heart of the country, and using AI to determine if what they're doing is suspicious or not. Now, this is something that goes back a while. The most, I tried to find as much as I could on this. And the furthest back that I could go that I could actually verify that this was part of this particular system was in 2022. So this was even going on during the Biden administration, which again only proves that there's no left-right separation. They are the same. They work for the same puppeteers. Remember that. And so back in 2022, there's a dude, a Texas guy, whose job, I don't remember exactly like what the job was for, but his job requires him to take a whole bunch of like these dirt roads in secluded rural areas and drive all over the state of Texas. And so he's going to these specific spots and driving all over the state of Texas on these rural roads. And this program flagged him as suspicious. And there's body cam footage of a state cop pulling him over on one of these just absolutely rural roads in the middle of nowhere, pulling him over and questioning him because he was doing suspicious travel And he was explaining to the cop, this was part of my job. And the cop didn't even want to hear it. He didn't care. He was just going after the dude for it, all based upon this particular system. So if you don't think that that's actually happening, it is. And a dude got pulled over for doing his job, driving in rural Texas because of it. So it is actively working. It is actively working. CL Moody, if you're hearing that about Flock, then you're listening to people that have no idea what they're talking about. Flock does not have direct energy weapons connected to it. Yeah. Whoever told you that has no idea what they're talking about. Don't listen to people like that. That's sensationalist clickbait. It's based on nothing but somebody's idea that they came up with in their head. Yeah, that's not what Flock does. All right, so continuing on, it says this investigation is based on interviews with 8 former government officials with direct knowledge of the program who spoke on the condition of being anonymous because they weren't authorized to speak to the media, as well as dozens of federal, state, and local officials, attorneys, and privacy experts. The AP also reviewed thousands of pages of court and government documents, state, grant, and local law enforcement data and arrest reports. Now, I don't necessarily know who all they talked to or the documents that they've seen, but from my own research and the documents that I've looked at, which wasn't thousands of them because I don't have the time to do that, but I've looked at a few of them, I can confirm that this program is legit. It says the Border Patrol has defined its own criteria for which drivers' behavior should be deemed suspicious or tied to drug or human trafficking, stopping people for anything for driving on backcountry roads. We just talked about in 2022. Being in a rental car. Yeah, that's right. If you're in a rental car, that's enough for suspicious behavior. Or making short trips to the border region. The agency's network of cameras now extends along the southern border in Texas, Arizona, and California, and also monitors drivers traveling near the U.S.-Canada border. And it reaches far into the interior, impacting residents of big metropolitan areas. Can I speak English, please? And people driving to and from large cities such as Chicago and Detroit, as well as from Los Angeles, San Antonio, and Houston to and from the Mexico border region. So be careful if you're in one of those regions and you're making your way towards a border of some kind. They're keeping tabs on you. So this is just another example, another continuation of how they're utilizing this technology to literally just eliminate every single ounce of privacy in your life. Now, again, I'm not telling you this to freak you out. I'm not telling you this to say you need to change your habits and try and protect yourself from this, because there's no way that you can hide from this. And I want to make that very clear, because I know the moment that we start talking about this, some people are like, well, I need to figure out a way to make sure that I'm not getting tracked or anything. There's no way. They have your information. They're always watching you. You can't hide from it. There's no point, and I want to make this very clear, there's no point in changing your entire life, going and hiding in some hole because you're trying to get away from the technology that they're using. While we're here, we still need to remember that our goal is to go out and be ambassadors for Christ and to witness to people, to share the gospel with as many people as we can. We can't do that if we're trying to hide from big tech. We can't do that. Satan wants us to cower. Satan wants us to hide. Satan wants us to alter our lives so we don't have that opportunity because we're afraid of technology that we can't hide from anyways. So I encourage you guys, don't worry about this stuff. They've already got all your information. They're already tracking you. Who cares? Because God's the one that's tracking them. So why would I worry about it? Big Brother's watching me. Well, I got the Father watching them and me. So I'm good. I'm covered. Plus, life here is but a vapor. Life is short. We don't need to worry about what's going on this because we have salvation through Jesus Christ, and we know this is the worst that we're ever going to have to live. The best is yet to come, eternity with Christ. Don't worry about this stuff. I can't stress that enough. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Now, I'm not saying go out there and sign up for all these optional things for them to pry into your life. I'm not saying that. But for people who are worried about this stuff, I wouldn't worry about it. Just live your life. Continue to be a light in this world. Continue to share the gospel with people. Don't worry about the technology that's coming against us, because ultimately, if that stuff's coming against us, that means nothing, because who is against us when God is for us? And we need to remember that. So just keep that your focus. Keep that your focus. That's the most important part. Okay. Now, let's start moving into the crazy stuff with the judges and legality of things and everything. So, experts stunned as judge finds DHS offered egregious lies about major operation. Yeah, fun times happening here. So, a judge on Thursday hit the Trump administration with a massive opinion in which she laid out numerous lies from DHS. Judge Sarah Ellis issued a 233-page opinion. They are never this big. The biggest that you usually see is anywhere from 100 pages or lower. 233 pages is incredible. I didn't look at all of them, but I looked at some of them, and she reams them. I'll tell you what. Judge Sarah Ellis issued a 233-page opinion backing the now-stayed preliminary injunction, which that was the injunction she put against the operation in Chicago, which they tried to appeal, which they failed, and it stayed in place. And she issued limiting federal tactics in place in response to anti-ICE protests in Illinois. Judge Sarah Ellis said in her injunction ruling that body cam footage showed an immigration agent using ChatGPT to compile a narrative for his report on an encounter with protesters. So when I looked into this, basically what happened is his body cam was on, and he was trying to figure out the best way to spice up his reports of their reaction against protesters in Illinois, and tried to make himself sound good, try to make it so he was justified for the things that he did, and he couldn't come up with it on his own, so he actually used ChatGPT on his phone in order to come up with the best way to write something on his report to make it sound good. And his body cam footage caught all of it. Yeah. Ellis also said U.S. Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bovino, which we already talked about him today, was evasive over 3 days of his deposition, either providing cute responses or outright lying. He got caught multiple times lying. Says Judge Ellis finds that Chief Bovino gave not credible testimony, stating that he appeared evasive over the 3 days of his deposition, whether providing cute responses or outright lying. She highlights how he denied tackling someone even though it was on video. I went and I found the videos, the body cam footage, as well as other perspectives and angles of these encounters, and the video is clear as day that these DHS agents are indeed lying about what they're talking about, because the video says otherwise. Remember, we live in a technocratic state now. Everything that you do is being recorded. Keep that in mind. Says Judge Ellis is the first federal judge to review extensive body cam video of DHS's actions in Chicago. She finds that the DHS repeatedly misled the public and made claims that were disproven by agents' own videos before he flagged some of the most egregious ones. On October 28th, DHS Gov claimed that days earlier rioters had shot agents with commercial artillery shell fireworks, thus forcing agents to deploy tear gas and riot munitions. Judge Ellis reviewed the video. This was completely false. The explosions were DHS flashbangs. I saw this video, and what happened was they deemed that the rioters had one of those mortars, like firework mortars that shoot up into the air, and they claim that shot into the police line at one of the DHS buildings. What actually happened was a DHS agent on the roof of that building took a flashbang and threw it, couldn't throw it far enough, landed onto the police line, which went off, and then they thought that was the rioters, and so they started shooting munitions over at the rioters, even though it was the DHS agent that threw a flashbang at his own police line. And the DHS government account put out the false story, even though the video, clear as day, shows what actually happened. Judge Ellis said, all these errors add up, and at some point it becomes difficult, if not impossible, to believe almost anything that DHS represents. I'm one of those people. I don't believe the word coming out of their department. It also says the top officer testified protesters had shields with nails in them, except they were no nails, and it was pretty much cardboard. It was just cardboard. So I read a little bit of this thing. I can't go through 233 pages. I just don't have time. And yeah, I just can't. But I looked at a lot of this stuff. I've seen the footage, the videos of both body cam and of people just recording it with their phones and stuff like that to get the idea of what's going on. And it's just lie after lie after lie after lie coming from DHS, because they're using this as their way to prop up the operations that are putting forth in these towns and in these cities and all this type of stuff. So this was just an article that I could find that kind of lists it all easily and quickly, because we don't have time to go through all the details of it. But this is what's going on. This is exactly what is happening. And the thing is like, and this is my point that I want to make when it comes to sitting in the bleachers as opposed to having any other side, because part of the stuff when it comes to looking up these things that I do is I like to go to various sections of social media to kind of get an idea of what people are saying, whether it's comment sections on reports, whether it's like on Twitter and message boards and all this stuff, because I want to see what people are saying in regards to this. And you can very much see that all of this is working perfectly, because if you go and you look at these comments, if you go to a more left-leaning platform, you can see that they're not only talking about stuff like this, but they're embellishing things. They're creating stories. They're trying to make it sound worse than it is, which it's already bad. Don't get me wrong. We've talked about it, but they're trying to make it sound like they're out there killing people, killing the rioters and stuff, which I haven't seen anything of that. But then when you go to the right side, the right-leaning side of things, you look at what they're saying, and they're saying every report, every video that we're seeing that says this stuff is not right lie, and they're just making it up because they're all activists going against this stuff because they want the immigration stuff here. And you can see that both sides, they're not interested in the facts. They're not interested in evidence. They're not interested in the truth of what's going on. They're looking to try and find something that props up their side of things because they're in a war with each other. They're in that political spectrum war that I warn about don't get involved with. If we just view it from, again, the bleachers, and we just look at the truth and the facts and the evidence and base everything upon that, that's where we can actually start to see what is really going on, the reality of the situation. We're not in La La Land. We want the reality of the situation. And so that's why it's so important that when we're looking at this stuff, we're vetting it. We're piecing things together. We're not looking for leanings. We're just looking for the facts and the evidence and the truth of what's going on. Now, in some cases, we can't get the full picture of the truth. And so we don't necessarily need to die on a hill. We don't want to die on a hill that we can't verify with facts. But it's one of those things where we just gather information and hold on to it and wait for things to develop. And that's why it's always good to wait and see how these things go. So that's what I encourage people to do. That's the perspective that I believe that we need to be, because if we're not taking that perspective, if we're not looking at things from that point of view through that lens, then we're opening ourselves up to even more deception than what we're already getting now. Nobody's saying that nobody is deceived in this world. I think we're all deceived about something. But our goal is to not actively pursue more deception in the name of whatever we believe in. Our goal is to try and eliminate this deception and not add more in. And I believe that's the correct way to go about it. That's my soapbox. I'll leave it there. All right, let's take a look at this too. It says judge dismisses charges against Chicago woman shot by Border Patrol, talking about lies coming from the administration. Prosecutors had accused Marimar Martinez, an other defendant, of ramming their cars into federal vehicle in October. Her legal team argued it was federal agents who rammed her. Now, this is a story I've been following since it first came out. I've been paying attention to it because it was interesting what was going on, because you can't find a full, concise video of what happened. You can get bits and pieces of it, which it's hard because if you don't get either a certain amount before the incident or a certain amount after the incident. You don't necessarily know what's going on, but I've been following this, and this is a pretty interesting outcome for what happened. It says a judge dismissed charges Thursday against Miramar Martinez, who was shot by a Border Patrol agent multiple times in Chicago and accused of using her car to assault and impede federal law enforcement. The move came after federal prosecutors filed a motion to dismiss their own case. Martinez's case has been one of the most high-profile examples of civilians being accused by federal authorities for ramming into a vehicle driven by immigration agents. I don't know if people have been paying attention or looking into what's been going on with these vehicle rammings that have been happening. A lot of them, I'm not going to say all of them, because there's some cases where people are actually trying to do something. But a lot of them I've noticed are ICE agents or DHS agents who are driving unmarked cars, and they are literally running into other cars, knocking them onto the side of the road, pit maneuvering them, getting out, looking at the person, maybe asking a question or something like that, getting back into their car and just driving off. They're just totaling people's cars for no reason and then just speeding off. These are unmarked cars with no license plates. And so there's been a lot of these things happening. And then what they do is they blame that it was the civilian who rammed them. And then it's a he said, she said situation of what's happening. So it's a case-by-case basis. I can't tell you it's just overall, this is what's happening from one side. It's just a case-by-case, but that's what's happening a lot. And this is another case that happened. It says Andrew S. Boutros, the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, filed court documents Thursday morning to dismiss the charges. U.S. District Judge Georgia Alexakis granted the government's motion to dismiss the charges Thursday evening. Court documents show the charges were dismissed with prejudice, meaning Martinez and her co-defendant cannot be filed again against them. So basically, what happened is the agents claimed that these people rammed federal agents, stopped them from doing their job, and pulled a gun on the federal agents, which required them to then pull out their gun and shoot this person 5 times in the car, shoot their car 5 times. And then the charges came from the government to put against these people. The same government who brought those charges then said that they wanted to dismiss them. Why? Because evidence came out that proved that the federal agents fabricated everything. They fabricated the ramming, they fabricated the gun being pulled, they fabricated everything because they were the ones that actually went after these people for no reason. It's telling when the very same people who bring up the charges choose to dismiss the charges because evidence will show that they were lying. That tells you what is actually happening. Martinez's legal team then had argued that it was federal agents who rammed her car with their vehicle and that the shooting was unjustified and an excessive use of force. The motion to dismiss comes after it revealed last week at a court hearing that the Customs and Border Protection agent who shot Martinez multiple times had bragged about it in messages to other officers. According to Reuters, records presented at the hearing showed that in a group signal chat with other agents, Exum, the one who shot, wrote, "I fired 5 rounds and she had 7 holes. Put that in your books, boys." In a message to another recipient, Exum sent a news article about the events followed by the message, "Read it. 5 shots, 7 holes." Christopher Parente, an attorney for Martinez, asked the agent what he meant by those messages. According to the records presented earlier this month at a hearing against her, Exum responded, "I'm a firearms instructor and I take pride in my shooting skills." Yikes. The agency also shared a statement with its description of the alleged incident involving Martinez and Santos Ruiz, saying Border Patrol law enforcement officers were ambushed by domestic terrorists that rammed federal agents with their vehicles. And another lie. The statement said Martinez was armed with a semi-automatic weapon and had a history of doxing federal agents. The complaint against Martinez did not mention or include charges related to a firearm. So they mentioned that she had a gun on her and pulled it onto the agents, but the complaint officially filed never even mentioned the gun. So this is another case of you can't trust what is being put out in regards to these things. And I warn about this all the time because they use this stuff, whether it's coming from the government or whether it's coming from the media. Doesn't matter where it's coming from. Doesn't matter if it's coming from a pastor. It doesn't matter. Is if there's a leaning agenda to it and there's a point that they're trying to accomplish, they're going to manipulate it in some type of way to get a response out of you. They want an emotional reaction out of you. They will pit your leanings, your personal biased leanings, against whatever they want it to be. And so you have the right that says, well, the DHS is out there trying to take out the immigrants. I'm all for that. So anything that they say is true. Anything that says otherwise, that says there's something negative about it, obviously is a lie. And then the left side is doing the exact same thing, just in reverse. It says, well, the immigrants and stuff, it's okay. We need them to have here and everything like that. So they're out there murdering these people and they're out there doing this and they're out there doing that and everything that they do is bad and so on and so. And it's like, they're doing emotional reaction responses in this stuff. And we need to make sure that, again, we're not falling into that. That's, if there's anything that I can get through tonight, it has to do about that. And this is just another case of government is saying one thing, the administration is saying one thing, just blatantly lying, fabricating stories that could have cost this woman her life. And the truth comes out when there's actual bits of evidence that brings it forward. And so we need to make sure that's what we're focusing on. We all good? Hopefully I'm not losing anybody. Hey, Judah's in the chat. Hopefully you're feeling all right, man. Glad to see you here. All right. Let's keep it going. We have this. So, it says ICE employee among 16 men arrested in Bloomington sex trafficking sting. It says more than a dozen men have been arrested after trying to solicit a minor for sex in Bloomington, Minnesota, police say. According to Bloomington Police Chief Booker Hodges, officers started a 3-day sting on November 5th. They used several methods to find people who were attempting to solicit a 17-year-old girl. In all, police arrested 16 men during the investigation. One of the men, he said, is an employee for Immigration and Customs Enforcement who could face federal charges. Hodges said that the ICE employee works as an auditor. When he was arrested, he said, "I'm ICE, boys," Hodges said during a press conference Tuesday. Well, unfortunately for him, we locked him up. I don't have the video to play, but the guy who was speaking just did not care because he brought that up and he said, yeah, when we arrested him, the guy basically came up and said like, hey, it's all good. I'm ICE, boys. And he said him and the guy that he was with just looked at each other and said, well, fortunately for him, we locked him up anyways. It's like, that's how it should be. It's like, it's like, wait, that's like the person pulling out like, do you know who I am type of thing? I don't give a rip who you are. If you did something that you're not supposed to be doing, you're going down. That's how it should be. Fortunately, that doesn't happen all that often, and it's a problem that's getting even worse. So just keep that in mind. There's another suspect is a staffer at the Minnesota Pollution Patrol Agency. Not all the men have been charged, which I don't understand that, but I need more details on it. And it says Hodges added that he knew ICE took custody of a few of them, but we don't have a way to verify someone's status here at the Bloomington Police Department. So apparently some of the people that they arrested in this sting, ICE ended up taking a few of them, and now the Bloomington Police Department can't even check to see what happened to those people, which that always throws red lights off for me. So but yeah, this is just another case. Again, this is, I wanted to bring this up because this is in line with a lot of reports that we're getting from news agencies. I'm going to think of the word. From news agencies that are talking about how a lot of people are just dressing up and acting like ICE in order to do whatever they want to do, rob people, There's been a murder case that's happened that's still pending on all the details regarding that. Kidnappings, rapes, and things like that. We've talked about a few of those reports in the past. Even the FBI put out a bulletin saying that this is happening and whatnot. So just keep that in mind, that this is happening, and it's probably happening a lot more than we're being told, because they like to keep that stuff under wraps. Some of it can sneak out. Some of them, a lot of it is under wraps as well. Then we have this. This just brings back memories of people who were Clintoned, to say the least. This is Chinese immigrant found dead in disturbing position 4 days after entering ICE custody. We'll just call him Fang, Chao Fang Ji. Fang was in a hog-tied position when he was found dead at an ICE facility in Pennsylvania. It says an autopsy report has disclosed that Fang, a Chinese national who died in U.S. immigration custody, was found with his wrists and ankles bound in a hog-tied position. The revelation challenges that official classification of his death as a suicide, prompting his family to initiate legal proceedings against the Department of Homeland Security to compel the release of evidence. So, a little backstory on this. We'll get to the rest of this in just a second, but a little backstory on this. So, this guy is here illegally. So, yeah, get him out. No problem with that. But he is here illegally. They managed to find him because he was arrested for, I believe he was accessing a computer or somebody's digital device because without authorization. So I don't know if it was hacking. I don't know if he stole a device. I don't know the story on that. So he got caught doing that, and that's why he was arrested and thrown into ICE custody. So there's no problem with that. No problem as in, that's fine, arrest him, get him out, deport him, whatever. But what's fascinating about this story is he was found hogtied, wrists and ankles hogtied and hanged. And they're deeming it suicide. So did he manage to hogtie himself and then manage to get himself hanged? Or did he first hang himself and then before he passed out from lack of air, he managed to hogtie himself? You see what I mean? Doesn't make sense. And the reason why this brings back Clinton stuff is because if you guys remember the story, this was what, 6-7 years ago, something like that. There was the guy who was writing a story, or he was an agent that worked for the Clintons, who was found hanged and with a shotgun blast in his chest, and people couldn't determine if he hung himself first, then shot himself, or he shot himself, then hung himself, because it was deemed suicide. Something's going on here. And what makes this interesting is this is not the first dude who has been found like this. I think I found a total of 4 other people who have been found hogtied and hanged in an ICE facility. And they were all deemed suicides. This Newsweek obtained a copy of Xi's autopsy report, which revealed that his wrists and ankles were tied with linens. He was reportedly in a hogtied position when he died. Medical examiner, however, noted that there had been precedents of people binding themselves before hanging. There were also visible signs of defensive trauma. So defensive wounds, hogtied, and hanged, but yet they're deeming it suicide. Something ain't adding up. Despite the medical examiner's statement citing that there were similar incidents in the past, observers remain skeptical regarding the physical feasibility of the act. You think? So they're saying somehow he tied his own wrists and ankles and then killed himself. I don't think so, one commented. Another shared the same sentiment saying no one hogties themselves and then commits suicide. This is DHS assistant Tricia McLaughlin, who has really been on the front spotlight when it comes to blatantly lying about things. I didn't know who she was until a couple of weeks ago because all of a sudden she came out of nowhere and she is playing PR like crazy because all the lies are starting to come out and she's having to try and cover for them. But DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin, all in custody deaths are tragic, and stated the agency takes it quote unquote seriously. She also insisted that they were thoroughly investigated by law enforcement. The first thing that popped into my mind was this. We investigated ourselves and cleared ourselves of any wrongdoing. That's basically what she's saying, is we investigated it and found that there was no foul play. That's basically what's happening here. It says ICE takes its commitment to promoting safe, secure, humane environments for those in our custody very seriously. Laughlin concluded that is a lie if I've ever heard one before. Now, again, this person shouldn't be here and they committed a crime. Should they be absolutely deported and face charges for their crimes? Absolutely. Again, nobody is arguing that. But did he deserve to be hogtied and hung and then his death deemed suicide? Not for what he did, no. And I'm sorry, but if you're somebody who's going to sit there and say, well, he got what he had coming to him because he was illegal and he hacked somebody's thing, it's like you might want to get right with God because that's not worthy of death. I'm sorry. It's just not how that works. Anyways, but this seems to be a problem. Now, again, remember all the inhumane stuff that was happening, the deaths that was happening in these detainment centers back in the Biden administration, and how there was massive outcry from the right about it? Well, those are the very same people that are dead silent about it now because it's their guy that's in place and it's not the other guy. And that right there, if you pay attention, is enough to realize that it's all about the perspective and whose side you're on, as opposed to just looking at the facts and what is right and what is wrong. And we need to make sure that we are not falling into that trap. All right, switching over to what we got going on. I think we're doing good on time. Keeping tabs of what's going on with this Venezuela situation. There we go. Me and English, not friends today. Says U.S. to designate Venezuela's Cartel de los Soles as terrorist group. The United States will designate Venezuela's Cartel de los Soles a foreign terrorist organization, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced Sunday amid heightened tensions between the two countries. In a statement, Rubio said that the group is run by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, whose government the U.S. has called illegitimate. Based on Venezuela, the Cartel de los Soles is headed by Nicolas Maduro and other high-ranking individuals of the illegitimate Maduro regime who have corrupted Venezuela's military, intelligence, legislature, and judiciary, Rubio said in a press release. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because this cartel that they're talking about, Cartel de los Soles, doesn't actually exist. It doesn't actually exist. This name that they're putting on Maduro and this network that they're talking about, and nobody is denying that Maduro is a part of a drug trafficking regime in that thing, and he's part of an illegitimate government because we just talked about it not too long ago that the Nobel Peace Prize chick that just won, who was backed by the U.S. group and whatnot, helped him get into that position in the first place. So it was through the U.S. intervention and coups that were happening in Venezuela that Maduro managed to take over. But getting back to the situation, Cartel de los Soles doesn't actually exist. It's not a real cartel. It was created by the U.S. government in order to classify the Maduro network as a cartel for them to open up new options to go after them militarily. Pretty interesting how that was done. So it was actually, while the network exists and Maduro's drug trafficking stuff exists, that's not actually a real cartel. And so it was created by the U.S. to place upon them in order to open up options for them to strike. It says the United States will continue using all available tools and protect our national security interests and deny funding and resources to narco-terrorists, he added. So continuing the war on drugs. So what this does is this actually opens up a window of opportunity and more options for them to strike Venezuela in different ways legally, which we know that they don't really care much about legality, but it's still playing along with the game because they designated the cartel that they created as Maduro's, creating an open window. This is not the first time this stuff happens, guys. Governments have been doing this for forever. So this isn't something brand new. This isn't something that, this is the first time they've done. No, governments have been doing this all the time. They just create an organization and place it upon something that they know is happening for them to have options and doors open for them. That's all it does. So it's nothing new, but it's just a classic that they pulled out in this case as well. So we look at this. It says U.S. to launch new phase of Venezuela operations. Sources say this came out today. It says the United States is poised to launch a new phase of Venezuela-related operations in the coming days. 4 U.S. officials told Reuters as the Trump administration escalates pressure on Maduro's government. Reuters was not able to establish the exact timing or scope of the new operations, nor whether the U.S. Trump has made a final decision to act. We talked about this, I think, last week, how they got together and decisions are being made, how they're going to go forward with this Venezuela operation. It says reports of looming action have proliferated in recent weeks as the U.S. military has deployed forces to the Caribbean amidst worsening relations with Venezuela. 2 of the U.S. officials said covert operations would likely be the first part of the new action against Maduro. It says President Trump is prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and bring those responsible to justice. Worth noting, because it's talking about the 2 U.S. officials about covert operations and whatnot. We covered this last week as well. Or was it Tuesday? I think it might have been Tuesday. We just recently covered it. I can't keep track, guys. There's so much stuff going on. But we just talked about how there's the report coming from the congressman that said Maduro's getting ready to do something drastic and start like attacking his own infrastructure. And then the Machado chick who's helping with all of this, the Peace Prize winner, put out about the exact same time, I think it was 20 minutes later, put out a thing saying, Maduro, don't do this. Don't attack your infrastructure. Don't do this. And it was clearly a setup here to create an essence of a false flag. It's opening a window of creating a false flag so the United States can go in. And so with the covert operations and all that type of stuff, they could pull this off, blame it on Maduro, and then go in accordingly. So worth keeping those narratives in mind on this. 2 U.S. officials also told Reuters the options under consideration, including attempting to overthrow Maduro, which we know that's part of the Project 2025 agenda. We went over that as well. It says the United States plans on Monday to designate the Cartel de los Soles, a foreign terrorist organization, which they just did, for its alleged role in importing illegal drugs into the United States. Now, why this is important? Because U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said last week that the terrorist designation brings a whole bunch of new options to the United States. So those who are asking, why would you create a cartel and designate it for Maduro? Because of this. Since Trump has said that the upcoming designation would allow the United States to strike Maduro's assets and infrastructure in Venezuela. Are we starting to see how all this covert geopolitical chest moving works? It's very fascinating to watch when you start to see the details unfolding, and you kind of can look back at their playbooks and you can see how they do these types of operations. And we're getting a good look at what's happening with Venezuela. Now we have this, which stems from the Venezuela situation, and we're getting more legal issues. There's a lot of legal stuff happening on this episode, guys. Hopefully you're cool with that. It says the lawyer at the U.S. Southern Command, which oversees the operations against alleged drug smuggling boats near Venezuela, disagreed that the strikes were legal, but was overruled according to sources. It says the senior military lawyer for the combatant command overseeing lethal strikes on alleged drug smuggling boats near Venezuela disagreed with the Trump administration's position that the operations are lawful, and his views were sidelined according to 6 sources with knowledge of the legal advice. The reason why he was sidelined and the officials went against this guy is because all those officials were hand-selected replacements for officials who were deeming the stuff illegal. I'll show you that in just a second, but basically all of the people who were going against the Trump administration on these illegal strikes were removed from their position and replaced with yes men who would just approve what's happening. It says the lawyer who serves as the senior judge advocate general, or JAG in military parlance, at the U.S. Southern Command in Miami, raised his legal concerns in August before the strikes began in September. His opinion was ultimately overruled by more senior government officials, including officials at the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel. But some of the military lawyers, including civilians and those in uniform, also expressed concern to the senior officials in their commands at the Defense Department about the legality of the strikes. The JAG at Southern Command specifically expressed concern that strikes against people on boats in the Caribbean Sea and the Eastern Pacific Ocean, whom administration officials called narco-terrorists, could amount to extrajudicial killings, the 6 sources said, and therefore legally expose service members involved in the operations. We'll get to that in just a second as well, because that's the title of this episode, The Gallows. This is the opinion of the top lawyer for the command overseeing a military operation is typically critical to whether or not the operation moves forward. While higher officials can overrule such lawyers, it is rare for operations to move forward without incorporating their advice. In this case, that advice was disregarded because a group of yes men that replaced the people who were against the strikes to begin with basically overruled him on that case. Chief Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell, who is lying through his teeth in everything that I ever see him issue a statement about, he issued a statement and said the War Department categorically denies that any Pentagon lawyers, including Southcom lawyers with knowledge of these operations, have raised concerns to any attorneys in the chain of command regarding the legality of the strikes conducted thus far, because they are aware of that we are on legal ground. Our current operation in the Caribbean are lawful under both U.S. and international law, with all actions in complete compliance with the law of armed conflict. So basically he's coming out and saying, yeah, everything that we're doing is legal. Don't worry about it. The opinion of the Southern Command JAG, which was not previously reported, adds a new dimension to concerns that lawmakers, retired military officers, and legal experts have raised about the administration's legal justifications for striking alleged drug boats. And they continue to have to put the word alleged in there because there has been zero verifiable evidence that says that these are actual drug trafficking boats on their way to the United States. There's still none, and the United States government still refuses to issue any evidence that these are actual terrorists. They continue to just say, trust me, bro. That's all they're saying, is they're saying that they're narco-terrorists. And that's what they're doing, even though they won't provide any evidence for it. And that's where the whole legality situation starts coming into play. Because if you can't provide evidence and you're just killing people, that's just straight up murder. And so the people who are involved with it, that are pulling the trigger on this stuff, they're liable for it. And remember, if you guys go back to history of the Nuremberg trials, anybody who said I was just following orders during that wasn't an argument. So you can't plead that. But there's a lot of stuff that's been happening lately. It So since September 2nd, it says the administration has killed 82 people in 21 strikes on small vessels it says were transporting drugs bound for the United States. Administration officials have not put forward any specific evidence backing up the claims. So we've got that going on. Now, the reason why this dude was sidelined, which wouldn't be surprised if he gets replaced soon, because that's what they've been doing, is they've been cleaning house on any lawyers and legal people, advisory council in there that are going against what the Trump administration wants to do. Oh, you're against what we're doing and you think what we're doing is illegal and so on? Get out. We're going to replace you with somebody that's going to follow orders. And that's an authoritarian regime. That's like definition of authoritarian regime. It says White House blew past legal concerns and deadly strikes on drug boats. Trump administration sidestepped skeptical lawyers across national security agencies as it pursued military campaign against alleged narco traffickers, officials say. Let's just go through this and we'll see what's going on here. It says Trump and his White House official aides pushed for lethal strikes on Western Hemisphere drug traffickers almost as soon as they took office in January, and in the past 10 months have repeatedly steamrolled or sidestepped government lawyers who questioned whether the provocative policy was legal. It says, amid pushback on CIA action from lawyers in the late spring, the administration forged ahead with an alternative plan that was already under discussion to use the U.S. military. And it came up with a legal justification that national security law experts inside and out of the government have said does not stand up to facts, that the country was in a non-international armed conflict with designated terrorist organizations. So basically, legal experts, lawyers, both in the military and civilian side lawyers, have looked at what's going on, looked at what they have designated this thing as, and said, this is not factually correct. It is not legal what they are doing. And this government said, we don't care, and just went ahead with it. That's what's going on. And I've been following this for a while, not from the very beginning, but for a while. And there's been a lot of movement when it comes to eliminating legal counsel out of the Pentagon and bringing in people who are basically, Trump soldiers. It says the account of the evolution of the Trump administration's lethal counter-drug strategy is based on interviews with almost 20 current and former officials and other people familiar with the aspects of the discussion. Jump down. It says many of the lawyers and other career officials at the White House, National Security Council, Pentagon, and Justice Department who had over the preceding months raised concerns about using lethal force against narco traffickers had either left the government or reassigned or removed. Proposed findings are typically reviewed by lawyers at the CIA and other agencies, including the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and Justice, State and Defense Departments. Then an interagency review is conducted, usually overseen by the NSC legal advisor. But by summer, the NSC's entire full-time legal staff, or about a half a dozen, was gone. Some left when their details ended, and others, including the shop's top lawyer, former Pentagon General Counsel Paul Ney, were let go in May due to staff shakeups, 3 former officials said. Ney had been among the lawyers who had raised concerns about the legality of the legal strikes. So all the people that were saying this is not legal were removed. Meanwhile, career civilian lawyers at the Defense Department had largely been cut out of cartel strike discussions by political leadership. So all those opposed were cut out. It says at the end of September, the CIA's Ratcliffe appointed his deputy, Michael Ellis, as a temporary general counsel, an unusual dual role. Besides serving as a deputy helping run the agency, he would be acting as the agency's top lawyer until a permanent general counsel, Josh Simmons, was confirmed. Ellis, a former NSC lawyer and intelligence aide in the first Trump administration, took over from a career CIA lawyer who was serving as acting general counsel. That lawyer, who is still in the general counsel's office, was among those who raised questions about the legality of the agent's use of lethal force, according to people familiar with the matter. So the dude who was serving in this position was against the legal strikes, and so he was removed from that position. He's still in the building, but he was removed from that top spot in order to bring in a person who would agree with the Trump administration's moves. There's more. Concerns extend to the Americas and Counter-Narcotics Mission Center, according to current and former officials. There's just so much nervousness in the office, said a second former official. The mood is, we don't even know if what we're doing is legal. One Mission Center lawyer who questioned the use of lethal force against drug traffickers has been reassigned and replaced with a career CIA lawyer. That concern is coming at the agency as the agency surged personnel to the Mission Center, earlier reassigning more than 24 analysts from other centers, including those that handle Europe, Eurasia, and counter-proliferation. In recent weeks, junior officers in the military, fearing potential legal exposure, asked military lawyers known as Judge Advocate General for written sign-off before taking part in the strikes, and said two people familiar with the matter, it does not appear that such memos were furnished. Some personnel are worried they might need attorneys in the future, said some current and former officials, describing concerns that a new administration and lawmaker might scrutinize the operation. In the past week or so, some career civilian lawyers at the Pentagon have been included in strike discussions, and they are raising concerns about the use of legal force. So even the people in South Command, they're worried that what they're doing is legal. They're going to military lawyers asking for written consent that it is indeed legal. And those lawyers cannot give them that written consent because they don't even know if what they're doing is legal. And so these people that are participating in this are worried about legal exposure, and military lawyers are saying, we can't confirm that what you're doing is legal. We can't write that. And like I said, I've been following the movement of Pentagon officials for a few months now, and there has been a massive overturn. I don't think people realize this. I didn't realize this until I started looking into it. Trump has, of all presidents of U.S. history, has the highest turnover rate in his administration than any other president in U.S. history. Trump, in 5 years, has a 92% turnover rate in his administration. That's just incredible. And most of that is coming from this year because they're getting rid of anybody who is disagreeing with what they're doing and bringing in people who will agree. They're bringing in yes men. This is an authoritarian regime. They're getting rid of the whole checks and balances system. And the problem that we're at right now, and again, this is from the view of left and right, is if you're on the right side and you're for Trump, you're saying, yeah, get rid of all the activists, get rid of all the leftists, get rid of all those people because they're the ones causing problem. Everything that Trump is doing is correct, and so get rid of anybody who stands in his way. And then you're looking at the left side that's doing the exact same thing on their side. It's just, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. But this is what's happening: is they're getting rid of anybody who is willing to stand against the illegal and unconstitutional things that this administration is doing. Now, because of this, there was a response. I believe it's 6 Congress members who are all veterans or a part of the intelligence community that all came out. And they said, if you're in the military, don't be afraid to reject an illegal order. And if it is an illegal order and you reject it, there is in the code, the United States Code, that defends you for doing so. You are not required to fulfill an illegal order. You take an oath to the Constitution, not to the people giving orders. We seem to forget that. And so if something is illegal, something is against the Constitution, as a military member, you are not required to do that. Now, if it is a constitutional order and you reject that, then there is problems there that we're not going to get into. But basically, these congressmen came out and said, don't be afraid to reject an illegal order. And so because of that, Trump basically came out and said that those congressmen need to be executed. And so this says, White House defends Trump remarks, says he does not want members of Congress executed. So, of course, we have the lame duck Levitt coming out and trying to spin it the other way, even though we have proof that says Trump wants to kill the Congress members. This is White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt told reporters Thursday that President Trump does not want to execute members of Congress who urge the military not to follow unlawful orders, but that he wants to see them held accountable. Let's just take a look at the evidence, shall we? And you be the judge. So this was his response. He says, seditious behavior, punishable by death. Pretty much confirming that those who are saying don't follow unlawful orders is seditious and they should be killed. Well, somebody responded to that and Trump reposted it. Somebody responded and said, hang them George Washington would. And Donald Trump agreed. You can see at the top there, Donald Trump retruthed or reposted what this person commented. So not only did Trump call for the congressman to be killed, but he's calling for them to be hanged. Calling for them to be sent to the gallows. She can't. What was said? She said to suggest and encourage that active duty service members defy the chain of commands is a very dangerous thing for sitting members of Congress to do, Levitt added, and they should be held accountable, and that's what the president wants to see. They're talking about unlawful orders. The video featured Elisa Slotkin, Mark Kelly, Jason Crow, Christy Houlihan, Chris DeLuzio, and Maggie Goodlander, all of whom who have served in the military or as intelligence officers. While the lawmakers did not point to any particular action by the White House, the video comes as the Trump administration has carried out deadly strikes in the Caribbean and blown up boats it has accused of ferrying drugs. The Trump administration has not provided evidence to back up its claims, and law enforcement typically interdicts boats suspected of drug activity. Lawmakers also raised concerns about the deployment of the National Guard troops to American cities. So I'll leave that up to you. You can make up your own mind regarding that. But the fact is the United States Code does defend military members from not going along with unlawful orders. And we seem to be having a lot of those happening right now. Interesting. All right. A couple more things. Wanted to bring this up. I had a few people asking about this. What's going on? It says I'm frozen. Am I back on? I shouldn't be frozen. I'm going to wait a minute to make sure that I'm still good. I'm back. Okay. You were? Not now. All right. I had a few frame drops there. I can see. All right. Hopefully we're still good. Gotta love the power and the internet and everything that's been going on. Things are getting unstable, man. I'll tell you what. All right. Let's finish this up. I had a few people asking about this because there's this meeting that happens. And so we're going to go ahead and cover a little bit of this. So Trump and Mamdani strike optimistic tone, sidestepping past critiques. The meeting between President Trump and the incoming mayor of New York City was strikingly warm for two men who had expressed deep concerns about each other's leadership. It's interesting because Mamdani has been calling Trump a fascist and a despot and all these types of things, which I'm not going to argue against those, honestly. But then Trump has also said that he's going to deport Mamdani, and he's going to cancel all federal funding and all these types of things and whatnot, and that he's a jihadist and he's planning the Muslim takeover of the United States. And, you know, we've been hearing all that type of stuff as well. But yet, when you get both of them in the Oval Office together, they can't stop loving on each other. It's amazing how that works. This is Trump and Mamdani, the mayor-elect of New York City, put on a remarkable display of bonhomie in the Oval Office on Friday when Mr. Trump showered praise to the Democratic Socialist and promising to help him succeed. Just weeks ago, Mr. Trump warned New York voters that electing Mr. Mamdani would amount to an existential threat to the nation's largest city. I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help, Mr. Trump said, adding, I think this mayor can do some things that are really, really great. Says, for Mr. Mamdani, the high-stakes trip to the White House, which has bedeviled multiple foreign leaders, could be hugely consequential for the nation's largest city, as could his relationship with the president in the coming months. Many New Yorkers have worried that Mr. Trump would send the National Guard into the city shortly after Mr. Mamdani takes office in January 1st, or that the president would try to punish the city in other ways. Mamdani seemed to have diffused the threat for now. Though this public posture was quite a change for the president, Mr. Trump has privately complimented Mr. Mamdani in recent weeks. We agree on a lot more than I thought we would have, Mr. Trump said. He notably disagreed with comments by one of his allies, Representative Elise Stefanik, Republican in New York, who is running for governor. When asked about her description of Mr. Mamdani as a jihadist, the president said he did not agree with her assessment. I met with a man who's a very rational person, he said. I met with a man who really wants to see New York be great again. I even heard some stuff that Trump was saying. He and I share a lot of the same ideas, and I heard from Trump saying he changed my mind on a lot of things as well. Take with that what you will. At multiple points during the meeting, Mr. Trump jumped in to defend Mr. Mamdani from pointed questions from reporters. The president patted him on the arm when he was asked by a reporter if Trump was a fascist. Mamdani smiled awkwardly, and the president advised him to just say yes. When a reporter pointed out that Mr. Mamdani called the president a despot, Mr. Trump interrupted and said, I've been called much worse than a despot, so it's not insulting. Now, I'll be honest. For all the, and I'm going to specifically target this one group because this is the group that I'm seeing it from. For all of the pastors and the prophecy teachers who have been screaming, I mean screaming into their megaphones that the Islamic takeover of the United States is here. There's going to be a massive uprising, and they're going to destroy this country within mere months. And Mamdani is going to be their leader of it. But yet these are the same people who support Trump no matter what, defending him. I would love to see the reaction regarding this. I would love to hear how they can defend Trump and in the same breath continue with that narrative that they've been pushing. Their head must be just on fire and fidgeting like crazy because they don't know which way to spin this. Do they continue with the narrative or do they defend Trump? Because remember, in the past 2 weeks, Trump has invited an Al-Qaeda leader who has beheaded Christians and killed U.S. military with a $10 million bounty on his head to the Oval Office to praise him and to lift the sanctions off of him. He has invited the prince, Saudi prince, Salman, into the office, praising him, laughing it up because they're best friends. And he has invited Mamdani, the Muslim socialist who was going to start the Muslim revolution and kill all Jews in the streets, to the Oval Office in the past 3 weeks, and has embraced and loved and endorsed each one of them. So which one is it? Is Trump still the good guy? Or is the Muslim takeover about to happen? I know I'm being, a way right now, a certain way right now. But I make it make sense. If you're a pastor or prophecy teacher that's been pushing this, I want to hear their response to this. Will they somehow justify it and continue on with what they're doing, defending Trump somehow? Oh, he's just got bad people telling him bad things around him. Or the one that I recently heard is he's enemies with all three of them, and the only way that he can get the inside information to bring all three of them down is to invite them over to the Oval Office. I kid you not. I heard somebody bring that up as the excuse. He only invited them in so he can get inside information to bring them down. There's that 46D chess that Trump seems to be playing in regards to all this. That's just my perspective on this, guys. That's why it's so important that we don't follow narratives and we don't follow agendas and biased leanings and follow the political stuff and all this type of stuff. That's why we hold to sticking on the bleachers, looking at the facts, taking a look at the evidence, and critical thinking our way through all of this. This is exactly why we do just that. I remember because I talked about this Mamdani thing, and I didn't want to, but I needed to at the time. And I was going through all this stuff, and he had the Jewish support, and he had all this stuff happening and everything like that. And I sat there and I said, he was selected, he was handpicked. This is theater. This is orchestrated. Let's just wait to see what happens. And then we're getting this report. And so we still need to wait and see what happens. I'm not saying one way or the other. We still need to wait and see what happens, but it's pretty fascinating what's happening here. I bet all the pastors who support Trump and have been screaming from the mountaintops about the Muslim takeover, their heads are exploding right now. That's all I can say. All right. Just a couple little notes here to finish this off. K-12 Education Department is moving to labor as Trump administration accelerates bid to dismantle Education Department. Says the U.S. Education Department is moving management of K through 12 and higher education to the Department of Labor and parceling out other job duties to other federal agencies in the most sweeping effort so far to dismantle the agency. So this is another case of we were told a half-truth. Actually, it's not a half-truth because a half-truth is still just a lie. So we were told a lie again because they were going to eliminate the Department of Education. Well, they're not actually eliminating the Department of Education. They're just moving it into the Department of Labor. It's the same thing that we saw when they were eliminating the U.S. aid. They didn't eliminate U.S. aid. They just moved it into the State Department. So again, it's just because you're getting rid of a name or changing a name doesn't mean that you're not actually getting rid of the department itself. It's just getting moved. That's all it is. And this is another case where the Department of Education is not going away. It's just getting moved to the Department of Labor, which is key because that's why the Department of Education was even created in the first place. We'll get to that in just a second. This is management of both Office of Elementary and Secondary Education and the Office of Post-Secondary Education will be moved to the Department of Labor, which oversees workforce development programs and protects workers' rights and responsibilities. Blah, 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 blah. If we consider K through 12 education as really preparation for adult life, preparation to enter the workforce, nowhere is it better housed than at the Department of Labor that thinks about this night and day, a senior department official said. We're really confident that this will end up being something that provides better services, more streamlined services, reduces bureaucracy. These changes involve necessarily narrowing the size and scope of this federal agency, the official said. Once implemented, they could serve as proof points for further downsizing the department. The move accelerates decades-long push by conservatives to eliminate the department that gained traction when Trump signed an executive order in March to start the process. The decision also made clear that the administration's willingness to use legal workarounds to avoid seeking approval from Congress. It's about implementing a business model. This is the important part. It's about implementing a business model that transforms students into widgets instead of human beings who need support, said Denise Forte, president and CEO of the advocacy group Ed Trust. And basically, she said that the Congress needs to act. So she's talking about implementing a business model that transforms students into widgets instead of human beings. Ding, ding, ding. If anybody knows their history, knows that's why the public education group the department was created in the first place. Oh, I forgot that I didn't even have the screen up. I apologize. I was just reading that. My bad. Sorry about that, guys. Hopefully you guys heard what I said. I'll bring it up now. That's my bad. I'm off my game. Crazy power and internet problems throwing me off my game here. But yeah, we just read through this. The key part on all this, though, is that's, if anybody knows their history of why the education department and the whole public schooling system was created in the first place, was it's designed to be an indoctrination center, not to teach people how to learn and how to go and be functioning adults with their own brains of use. It's an indoctrination center in order to create zombies to go out into the workforce and to be dependent upon the government for the rest of their lives and to go along with what they've been told to believe as opposed to learn how to read, think, and understand on their own. And so that's why the whole education department was developed anyways. It was a form of creating zombies for labor. And so it's pretty interesting that they're going to take the education department and fold it right into the labor department because that's ultimately where it began in the first place. And so it's fascinating that this is folding right into, well, an authoritarian style system begins. That's what the education department was created for, was for the authoritarian government to control citizens. And bada bing, bada boom, it's going right back to where it was. So, fascinating. Then we also have this. Eli Lilly reaches $1 trillion in value. I have it on screen this time, right? Yes, okay. I apologize. Eli Lilly reaches $1 trillion in value, buoyed by demand for its weight loss drug. 150-year-old drug maker is the first company in healthcare to reach that milestone. Eli Lilly, the maker of hugely popular weight loss drugs, has reached $1 trillion in value, becoming the first publicly traded company in healthcare to hit the milestone. Lilly's stock has surged in large part because of the company's success in seizing the biggest potential market in the history of the drug industry, the class of weight loss medicines known as GLP-1s, which are basically disastrous for the body. The company's injections, sold as Zepbound and Mounjaro, is on track to be the top-selling drug in the world this year. Under the watch of Dave Ricks, who became the chief executive in 2017, Lilly has added more than $900 billion in its market value. Now, may I ask why Eli Lilly has become a valued company of $1 trillion? Can you give me that answer there, Alex? Well, it's as simple as the announcement that just took place about a week ago. Mr. Ricks has cultivated a relationship with President Trump, dining with him and others at Mar-a-Lago. And this month in the Oval Office, Mr. Trump called Mr. Ricks one of the hottest people in the world in business. The two announced a pricing deal along with other drug company executives and U.S. health officials. Remember, we covered this last week where Trump and RFK Jr. sat there with Mr. Ricks and the dude from Novo something or whatever. They do the Ozempic thing. I can't remember I think it's Novo Disc or something like that. Novo Nordisk, that's it. And they announced that they are making it so Medicaid and Medicare will cover weight loss drugs, and there's going to be a discounted price on those drugs, and they're going to be in partnership with Trump RX, so you can get it from there as well. And after that announcement, guess whose company skyrocketed? Eli Lilly. Because the president that I have been told by pastors and prophecy teachers is anti-globalist and anti-big pharma and had no idea about the 2020 stuff is actually the one who's making deals and making big pharma make a whole bunch of money. Under the deal, people will be able to use their own money to pay $450 a month for higher doses of Zepbound, $50 discount off the current price. The deal will expand coverage for certain people on Medicare and Medicaid and lower the government's costs for Zepbound for those eligible to $250 a month. The agreement has helped fuel a surge in Lilly's stock price. Just another case of where the evidence and the facts debunks a narrative that we've been told over and over and over again. We technically don't even need this too, because if anybody goes and looks into Crimson Contagion, which was the test run before Event 201 and the whole 2020 thing, you'll realize that it was Trump and Trump's administration that helped get the 2020 situation off the ground so they can do warp speed and so on and so forth. But again, that requires going with facts as opposed to feelings. And last but not least, yes, I'm in a mood today. Representative Rob Bresnahan sold stock in several Medicaid providers before voting for cuts. If we're going to call out Nancy Pelosi for her insider Congress stock trading, then we need to be able to call out all the other ones as well. Pennsylvania Republican is one of the several members who have come under scrutiny for stock trading as Congress eyes a potential ban. A week before he voted to significantly cut Medicaid, Representative Rob Bresnahan dumped 6 figures worth of stock in a quartet of companies that manage nearly half of all Medicaid enrollees in the country, according to public disclosure documents. Bresnahan, who became one of the most prolific stock traders in Congress after he took office this year, offloaded up to $130,000 worth of stock in Centene, Elevance Health, United Health, and CVS Health on May 15th. Periodic transaction reports he filed that the House clerk in June show. Taken together, these 4 companies oversee roughly half of all Medicaid managed care organizations, according to a health policy research organization. 7 days later, on May 22nd, the House took its first vote on Trump's mega bill, which slashed funding for Medicaid by nearly $1 trillion to help pay for tax cuts. Bresnahan, along with all but 2 House Republicans, voted in favor of the bill, which ultimately passed both chambers of Congress and became law this summer. While Bresnahan has come under scrutiny for these stock trades, including for offloading the Centene stock, which was worth up to $15,000, the full breadth of his Medicaid-related trades ahead of his vote of Trump's big, beautiful bill has not previously been reported. And just before he sold the Medicaid-related stocks, Bresnahan introduced legislation on May 6 to ban congressional stock trading and announced that he was moving his holdings into a blind trust. The most recent reported trade of Bresnahan's stock occurred on September 15th, according to Capital Trades, a website dedicated to tracking lawmakers' stock activity. He still ranks as the 7th biggest trader in Congress by number of trades, according to the website. Again, if we're going to call out Nancy Pelosi and her obvious insider congressional trading, we need to call out the rest of them too. And this dude made bank because he saw what was coming before anybody else did. It's lawlessness. It's lawlessness. It's corruption. This is the world that we live in, and it doesn't matter what color banner you raise or what letter is next to your name. Fact is this world is lawless and selfish and is morally bankrupt. to say the least. That's why we don't put our faith in these people. That's why we don't put our trust in these people. That's why we don't bank on these people. That's why some of us don't give our consent to these people. And that's why we choose to sit in the bleachers with Jesus, watching the game that's being played on the field between the red team and the blue team, or depending on what country you're in, depending on the colors that they use for their political sides. Where our view is more about paying attention to what's really happening from a perspective that's not on the field, but outside of the field. Where there's just massive amounts of selfish, lawless corruption on both sides. But while those two teams are battling on the field, we understand that there's a commissioner of the game and the owners of those teams. Just like every other sports thing. I know I'm going with the sports right here, but it works. It works. Teams are being played, but there's owners of those teams. And the owners are always friends, and they fall under the commissioner. And so we understand that those two teams are really just controlled and owned and playing on the same field by the same people who are telling them what to do. I can't stress enough. I can't stress enough to not get caught up in the political games that's being done right now. It will lead you astray every time. And in a world, in a time, a day and age where the church is now not just actively inviting politics into their sanctuaries, but they are actively pushing politics from their sanctuary. Again, I brought up Jack Hibbs, my word, and it's scary too, because I mentioned that video where he was on with Olive Tree Ministries, and you go and you look at the comments on there, and people worship Jack Hibbs. They worship him. Don't take my word for it. Go look at the comments. They worship that man. That's a scary thought. That is a scary position to be in. Don't ever be in a position where you're worshiping your pastor or a podcaster or anything like that. Don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. It's Jesus Christ alone, and he tells us to seek the truth, to find knowledge in these things. And we can't find knowledge if we're just feeding our own personal biases. Now, the thing is there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of them. I see them. There's a lot of people out there who are seeking that knowledge. They are looking for the truth of things. They're also sitting in the bleachers, but they're just not sitting next to Jesus. That's why we do what we do around here, is hopefully we can be a bridge to give them some of that fact and evidence and that knowledge of what's going on, but ultimately we can then introduce them to Jesus Christ, which is the only one who offers salvation, the only one who offers life, the only one who offers the truth. And it's through his gospel, which is as simple as ABC. A is we admit that we're a sinner, the act of repentance, the changing of mind, metanoia, turning from self to Christ. Again, this world is selfish. The mystery religion is selfish. It's all about self, but Christ says it's not about you. It's about me. And he extends his hand and his gift to you. And so through repentance that allows us to have a true understanding and a true belief in Jesus Christ, because how can we believe in Jesus Christ as our Savior if we don't know why we need him? And through repentance that allows true belief in Jesus Christ, we believe that Jesus Christ is the one and only begotten Son of God, that he came down 100% man, 100% God, the God-man, the one and only, and he lived the perfect sinless life, the one and only to do so, which means he was the only one qualified to carry the sins of the world upon his shoulders. Carried them to the cross where he was crucified and he died. Now, if that's the end of the story, we're doomed. But praise the Lord, that's not the end of the story. Because there's power in the blood of Jesus Christ. He defeated death and rose again on the third day, exactly as he said he would. And for all who believe in him shall not perish, but live forever in his presence and in his glory. The glory is his. Our salvation is found in Jesus Christ and that finished, completed work upon the cross and the blood that he spilled for us. And see, as we call upon the Lord, we're given an incredible gift, a supernatural gift that allows us, little old pathetic us, direct access to the throne room with direct communication to the Father. It's through that prayer. We say, God, thank you for this day and this time that you allow us to come together, all in different parts of the world, but yet we're still able to fellowship with each other. We thank you, Lord, for this opportunity. We thank you, Lord, for allowing us to get together and to talk about these things, to watch together. You command us to be watchmen. You command us to watch in these last days and to use it as encouragement as well as a time for us to witness to others and use it as a witnessing tool so we can share the gospel, share the work of your Son, Jesus Christ. God, give us the ability to see through the deception. For many of us that still are saved through Jesus Christ, we are still on the field playing the game. And I pray, Lord, help us and help them to recognize what's actually going on so they can join us in the bleachers and to be true watchmen on the wall. Give us the strength and the boldness to speak the name of Jesus Christ in the darkest of places. We ask, Lord Jesus, that you please come soon. In your holy name we pray. Maranatha, amen. Amen. All right. A little late on time, but see what we can do. And my word, think we got enough questions today, guys? Y'all got a bunch of questions up in here. Let's see if we can knock some of these out, shall we? My internet's still good? All right, good. See if we can roll through some of these here. Kathy Peth question. I was listening to somebody and they said that Jesus always had a body. I knew that he came in a body in the Old Testament and became flesh as a baby and has a resurrected body now, but did he always have one? This is a very interesting and it's a good conversation. It's a good study to have. The best way I know how to describe this is obviously we know in the Old Testament, we hear that the Lord came down and saw. You can even read it in regards to Babel. He came down and saw. So he was here. There's other times that we know that he's been here physically as well in the Old Testament before he actually came as a baby. We read that in the Old Testament. The best way I can describe it is to use the scripture itself. When we read about the two angels that came during the Sodom and Gomorrah situation and appeared as men. And so these are spiritual beings that actually came and appeared in a physical body. And so when you read about the Old Testament times that Jesus did the same thing, that would also be a case where Jesus, in the spiritual sense, came and appeared as a physical body. There's also the conversation. I'm not going to go one way or the other. This is something that you can look into yourself. There's also the theory that Jesus, I can't remember the name. No, my dad knows. Not of this world. There's the idea that Jesus was another biblical character. Can't remember his name off the top of my head. Not of this world. If you can please help me out with that. I know you know who I'm talking about. Wake up. I know you know who I'm talking about, and I'll mention that. But that's the best way I can describe it. So Jesus came down and he appeared in that type of way. The idea of what type of body it was and whatnot, we can't necessarily, we don't necessarily know that. So I can't describe that, but he did appear physically before he was a child. Melchizedek, thank you. Melchizedek. There's a theory that Jesus Christ was actually Melchizedek. So look into that one yourself. It's a fascinating study. So something to think about. Let's see here. Thank you for that. You would think with a name like Melchizedek you couldn't forget it, but I forgot it. That's how it goes. But yeah, so hopefully that answers your question, Kathy Peth. We can't necessarily describe what that body is. There's a lot of things that we can't. But yes, he did appear in a physical form on Earth. Let's see here. Victoria, random question. Why is the Y on the Prophecy Misfit banner hanging on by a thread? Mom and I couldn't figure it out, so I thought I'd ask. Yeah, so the Y that's hanging, if I can, here. Do this. Yeah, the Y down here has the thread on it, because like Fitz himself, he's fallen apart. He's beat up. He's missing an eye and stuff like that. The Prophecy Misfits logo is also beat up and whatnot, so it's being held together by some thread there. And it's also at the very end, while the C is being propped up by Fitz, the Y doesn't have anything that's propping it up, so it's kind of falling off. So it needs to be attached by thread onto the rest of the logo. So that was my thought process when I came up with it. So it's just another form of showing we're misfits and we're beat up and whatnot. Putting it on the logo. Let's see here. Edward McKelvey question: did our family grow after last night's podcast? It was good, by the way. Calvary Chapel Madison's a pretty small church. Maybe a few of them have stopped by and are checking it out because they didn't know, but I don't know, maybe. But yeah, they're a pretty small church. So, but it's a great church. You can tell how close they are and how family they really are family over there. Let's see, Victoria question: why is Tim LaHaye not good? Oh, we don't have enough time, Victoria. I'll just give you a few examples. He was heavily involved, like in planning committees with globalist people, and he praised and worshipped the Moon family. Which, take a look at the Moon family if you don't know them. They're evil. Very evil. Yeah, Tim LaHaye is just not good. You can take some time and look into his background. Not a good dude. Let's see here. Lori S., did you hear about Green retiring in January 2026? Why? It's just political theater. There's really no point in spending time getting caught up into that stuff. It's like a soap opera going on over there. I was telling my dad, we were talking about that with all the stuff Trump's throwing back at these people, and these people are throwing back at that, and people retiring. I'm just waiting for AOC to come out and say she's carrying Trump's baby. That's all we need. It's like the days of our lives over there. So just don't get caught up in the political theater. It really doesn't mean anything. Let's see here. All right, sorry. Let's see here. The Hylers question, how do you suggest processing all the craziness going on? I'm questioning everything that I have come to believe. It's overwhelming. Nothing wrong questioning all the things that you've believed. I've been through that process. There's still some things that I get checked on every once in a while. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong, again, we're to test the spirits, and that includes not only testing the spirits with biblical things, but also testing the spirits with what's going on in the secular world too. And so if you're questioning what you believe, there's nothing wrong with that. My suggestion when it comes to this, don't try and understand every single detail of everything that's going on. There's a lot of stuff that I see throughout the week and whatnot that I just take it in and move on to the next thing, because maybe it's not something that's worth keeping on to and it's not worth diving into. You'll go crazy if you try and do that. So don't try and collect and understand everything that's going on. It's never good. You'll drive yourself insane. The other thing is develop a good emotional intelligence level. I was talking about don't get emotionally invested in these things, because the government and the media all prey on it. They want you to have an emotional reaction to things. And so the best way to do it is to approach it from, a lot of people don't like this. I think it's the best way to do it is to become callous to these things. To when you see what's happening, you're not reacting to it. You're not surprised by it. You're just taking in the information and thinking through it properly, waiting on things. We need to wait on some stuff. A lot of things that come out mean nothing within at least 72 hours. Give it 72 hours and you'll notice how much of the information means absolutely nothing. And so a lot of it just has to do with having a callous mentality, having a strong emotional intelligence level, and not trying to understand every last detail of everything that's going on. Those are some basic things that we can do from, just a standard mental level. And then the other thing is spend as much time in prayer and scripture as possible, and let that be the thing that overtakes your mind, not the secular stuff, but let the biblical and the holy overtake it and go from there. So those are a few things that's how I go through all this stuff. Lori S. question, is the government planning another shutdown? We'll see. Nobody really knows that except for the game callers on this one. So yeah, we'll see. I still firmly believe the last shutdown was completely planned for them to get stuff done, because they got a lot of stuff done that they couldn't do if they didn't have the government shut down. So I still believe that. We'll see if they plan on doing it again. Nobody really knows the answer to that one, though. Let's see here. Carol Lamb. Shutdown seems to have ended. And anything major they have changed forever, restricting air travel, etc. No, air travel is back open. It's going to take a minute for it to get fully functioning again. All that stuff's getting turned back on and coming to fruition. I think a lot of the stuff that was done was getting hierarchy structure behind the scenes taken care of. They eliminated a lot of people from behind the scenes, as well as setting legal precedents. I think a lot of legal battles took place that they needed to get done in order for them to plan ahead for the next moves. And they couldn't do that without Congress out of session. So I think a lot of it is little details like that. Nothing flashy. Nothing flashy from what I can see. Jacques, Zach, you continue to say that you could speak English? Question, aren't you American? Yeah. We Americans can't speak English. We butchered the English language. No, I just say it as a joke. Like whenever I get tongue tied or something like that, I just say it as a joke. Like I can speak English. I promise. So it's just a joke. So, Jacques' question, has anyone in your areas, so I'm guessing United States, so this is probably for people in chat too. Did you guys notice that there was no moon last week? I didn't pay attention to any of that. So you might take a look and see what chat says depending on their region. Psych Nerd's question, have you been able to verify these videos aren't AI video and discovering an increase in fake video? Yeah, there's fake videos all over the place, but you can find body cam footage. You can download it straight from governmental departments or court websites that are body cam footage of those events. And then you compare and contrast that with other angles of the same things happening, and if everything matches up, then it's accordingly. So yeah, you can get it from verified sources, so you know that the video is correct on that. And then you can also tie that to court documents, as well as like some of the ones that we read today. And it's all about vetting and verifying. That's why I'm not speaking on certain events that's, hey, here's just one video that I saw from somebody who was recording something. I don't ever show anything like that because I can't verify it any other way. So you have to vet and verify through multiple sources and locations that you get it from. Let's see here. Antonio question, if the right-left politics is just an illusion, which I do lead towards, why would Trump get rid of so much of his administration that do not agree with him, or is it just a show? Well, you got to remember, you have thousands of people in the United States government. All of those people are not privy to what's actually happening. Many of those people think that the government is legit and they're there to do their job and to try and actually make a difference. And so they act accordingly on that. So all the lawyers and stuff like that who aren't going along with Trump, they're not necessarily privy to a higher person that's in control of what's going on. They're there to do their job, and they believe that their job is doing, is a legit job, and so on and so forth. And so it's certain people with certain power within those positions that are able to manipulate those other people and get things done according to what the script writers are saying. That's why a lot of stuff doesn't necessarily go to plan. If everything went according to plan, the last time that all of this would have been over would have been in the 40s with the whole World War II situation. Because all those people, including Churchill and Hitler and Mussolini and FDR and all those guys, they were all friends. They were legit friends, and they were all getting their marching orders from people who sit at the table. Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and there's some other ones out there. I can't recall off the top of my head, but there's 12 known families, and they were getting their instructions from there. But then you have the issue of Hitler saw an opportunity and he went off the rails. And that's why World War II took place. Because if you go back and you look at the documents, you look at the maps that were drawn up at that time and whatnot, they were fully planned on getting this globalist thing done back then. But it got messy. People went off script. People didn't do what they were supposed to do. And so they have to adjust and keep things going. Same thing here in the United States when it comes to the lawyers and the Congress and so on and so forth. They're not all privy to it. They're going to do what they're going to do. And sometimes things go off course and they have to readjust. And so that's how that works. So that's why it still appears messy and things don't go as smooth as what you would expect, because a lot of people aren't privy to it. They're just there to do their job. And that's how it works. So doesn't mean it's still not all orchestrated and there's a conspiracy going on behind the scenes. There absolutely is. Hopefully that answers your question. Oh, geez. Last but not least, what are you doing to me, Stephanie? What are you doing to me? All right. Theophilus Thistle, the thistle sifter, sifted a sieve of unsifted thistles. The Theophilus Thistle, the thistle sifter, sifted a sieve of unsifted thistles. Where is the sieve of unsifted thistles Theophilus Thistle, the thistle sifter, sifted? Well, that would be he traded with the woodchuck that could chuck a ton of wood. So you'd have to go there. I believe that he was initially trying to do a trade with Peter, who picked the peppers. You know, Peter the pepper picker. But that deal went through, so it fell through. So he went with the woodchuck. So you would go have to talk to them. And yeah, he drove his rubber baby buggy bumper over there in order to make the deal as well. So go take a look at that. Anyways, Stephanie, you ridiculous person. Seeing if I could really speak English. Yeah, well, you know. All right, guys, that's all I got. Thank you guys for joining me today, and I appreciate all of you guys. So if you guys can do me a solid and like, share, subscribe, certainly appreciate it. Yeah, we're trying as best as we can to try and reach people with the truth of what's going on and the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so if you guys can do me a solid and like, share, subscribe, it definitely helps hopefully reach those people with the gospel. Also, if you guys can, follow me Rumble and Telegram. Those are my backup channels. If I get booted off YouTube, we'll be back up live streaming over on Rumble. So make sure you guys follow over there. Telegram, post updates, announcements, and other little things that I can't necessarily put in video format. You guys can follow over there as well. If you don't like Rumble, you don't like Telegram, I understand. Just make sure you guys go ahead and bookmark the WretchedWatchmen.com website. It's your one-stop shop to stay up to date on everything happening in the Wretched Watchmen world of things. Find the latest podcasts and live streams, announcements. The free book is over there and all that type of stuff. So make sure you guys go ahead and bookmark the website. And last but not least, if you guys like to support this channel, what I got going on, I got donation links down below. CashApp, Venmo, and GiveSendGo. This channel's now monetized. I don't make anything from ads, views, or anything like that. Again, this channel runs solely off of your guys' donations. And so this is all because of you. That's right. This is because of you. You did this. And I love you guys for it. So thank you for that. If you guys would like to help support this and keep it going, those links are below. Thank you guys for that. And I appreciate your encouragement, your prayers, and your donations and everything like that. So you guys are wonderful. Yeah, so tomorrow is Saturday. Make sure you guys get your wretched, heathenic, misfit booties to church tomorrow, whether online, in person, doesn't matter as long as it's a Bible-believing, Christ-following church. And if the Lord does not come back by Tuesday, same time, same place, I'll meet you guys right back. Yeah. Peace out. Maranatha.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.